Hi, my name's PewDiePie and this is Book Review. I have this bad problem with buying books. I buy about twice as many as I read. Book shopping is honestly just as much of a hobby as reading is, but it's seriously getting out of hand at this point. This summer, I decided to try to rectify the situation a bit and see how many I can bust through, and I highly encourage you to do the same if you have a similar problem. My original plan was to make a progress video at the end of every season, but I'm currently reading way more than I thought I would be, so I decided to break it up in months instead. So even though I only read the last chunk of June, I'm still gonna break that up into its own month because the July one's getting way too long at this point. So welcome to June's recap. Let's start by addressing the problem first though. I currently own approximately 137 books, and I say approximately because once I counted, I made a list, and upon reading, I think I've missed some, so I have no idea what the actual count is, but I'm not digging back through that right now. I broke them down into categories and have individual counts for all of those, but yeah, we'll see. I'll update what I have left at the beginning of every season and not every month because that's just going to get really repetitive. It does need a update like seasonally, I feel, because I am sure I'll be buying more books and borrowing books and stuff, and I would like a more accurate count too, and to reorganize the categories because I don't know what I was thinking when I picked these categories, so it kills my soul a little bit. But here's what I currently have. I have 4 boxed sets, 10 Cassandra Clare, 29 books within different series, 6 celebrity, 4 Tolkien, 6 Chuck Palahniuk, 4 Savannah Brown, 7 nonfiction, 13 standalones, 6 more that are parts of series, but there's only 1. I think that's why it got its own category. 9 Harry Potter, 8 big and bulky ones, 12 graphic novels, 4 mangas, and 3 books that are more like bricks than actual books. And they only have their own section because I honestly forgot to photograph them when I was taking the rest. Just a fair warning now, I probably will butcher the plot in trying to describe some of these. I am terrible at explaining things, but I'm trying to get better. This is good practice for me. Also, I will spoil some of these to the core. I'll leave a list of all the books included and my scores and if I'd recommend them in the comments, so if you want to go read them first before watching this, then go for it. That's probably a better idea. Yeah, this video itself is more to express my thoughts since I don't really have many friends who read and I need my thoughts to go somewhere, so I'm putting them in here, and maybe I could find internet friends who want to talk about books. Okay, here we go. The first book is Skin and Earth Volume 1 by Lights. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Skin and Earth is a graphic novel with one of her albums. If you don't know, she's a musician. And much like the one that Showbread did with their Anorexia Nervosa albums, which I really loved, I love the concept of meshing all kinds of arts together. And I don't know, I think what she's done here is really beautiful. This is about N, who is seeing a guy who's being a douche, and I just want to kick him in the face. And he abruptly breaks up with her and she falls into a lady love rebound and shit goes downhill in this post-apocalyptic story about realizing you are the light that you needed all along, which is really powerful and I'm sure a lot of people need to hear it. A fun thing I noticed in the beginning is that this was released in 2019 and she's commenting on how you can tell her kind because she's wearing a mask, and that's before COVID. Probably not such an obvious thing to tell them apart these days. Lights' excerpt at the beginning of this states that she views N as who she is, and I want to say Sue is the name, that I'm terrible at pronouncing names, and she views Sue as who she wants to be, which is interesting when you read the story and realize that Sue isn't the best person. So I wonder why she said that. I'm very curious. I'd be really interested in hearing her deeper explanation of that because it seems like she wants to be the villain almost. Even though Sue ends up being kind of a bitch, I'm still a sucker for a lesbian twist, especially when it's an artist that I have admired for years. And especially after the beginning of this had me wanting to snatch her away from that terrible guy, I kind of got to live through that a little bit and see her snatched away by some other woman. I'm not even sure if we're supposed to feel like the guy's evil at the end. He still sounds like a fuckboy to me. Whether or not he ever loved her is beyond me. Overall, I'd still give this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I just wish it had a stronger arc of her finally respecting herself, which it kind of does, but in a very, very weak way. Could be stronger, but still would highly recommend this. And next is Down the Rabbit Hole by Holly Madison, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This book is basically Holly Madison's life story, which is actually going to become a series soon, supposedly. I hope it does. And it's roughly, very loosely, her childhood, and then roughly up until about the birth of her daughter, Rainbow. She glosses over early childhood, but you get a pretty clear look into her late teen years, which led to her stay at the mansion, which is the main focus of the book. I had watched the first 2 seasons of The Girls Next Door, and I didn't realize how little of the story we were actually getting. Reality TV is kind of a mindfuck like that. This topic isn't really easy to discuss, but I will say that sugaring in pretty much any form is going to take a huge toll on your soul, so think long and hard before falling down that rabbit hole. It's not a temporary thing. It will affect you for the rest of your life. Be very careful. There's lots of diseases and everything to worry about, and even without that, just like mentally, be very careful. Overall, I'm just glad that her jello spine finally started to solidify a bit, and I hope she truly feels independent in the future. Side note, in one part of this book, she's describing how Hef has tons of stuff in his room, and she compares it to rooms on the show Hoarders, but she does a play on words and calls it like hoarders, which I got a kick out of that. Next is Boke Expressway, Chasing a Song by Jacob Halton. I'm sure I butchered that. Give this 1 out of 5 stars. This entire graphic novel is about a guy named Mikey who hears a song at the club and he wants to find it. You get the full story within the title of the book. Like, you don't even need the book. The entire story could have been 1 page with the existence of the Shazam app, and like, it's not like this was written ages ago. Like, I'm sure they had Shazam. I don't know, it bothers me so much. It's frustrating to read through. Yeah, this is a story that makes no sense in modern time with, like, I don't know, you can easily find a song. That being said, the artwork is absolutely beautiful in this, and I'm bummed to see it wasted on such a useless story. Next is The Vegas Diaries by Holly Madison. I give this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. Before I discuss this book, can we talk about the cover? Why does she look so incredibly uncomfortable? They didn't have any other shot that looked more natural. I don't know, it just seems like a weird pick to me. Cover aside though, I think I only rated her first book so high because I had watched The Girls Next Door, so it was like behind the scenes look at something that I was already familiar with. She ends that book sounding like she was a strong and independent person once she left the mansion and was getting things rolling once she got to Vegas. That's what I expected this book to be, is about her independence and being strong and stuff, but boy was I wrong. This entire book is her complaining that she's so independent and built everything on her own, while also describing how many people she climbed to get to where she is, and it's just frustrating to read. She talks about every female as if she's a mean girl in high school, and when she meets a guy, she's instantly all gaga for him, but oh no, I should have known that he was anything but nice. It's so frustrating. I do really admire her work ethic though. She really wanted to be something and she achieved that. She's known that and pushed for that. What bothers me is that she didn't know what she wanted. She just wanted to be famous. That's the whole problem with influencers and stuff, and it just drives me nuts. I feel like if she was born 10 years later, she just would have been a YouTuber, which actually she now is, but she would have like only been that. She went to LA kind of wanting to act, but then changed her mind a lot, which is totally fine and normal to do in life, but it just bothers me that her end goal the entire time was just to be famous. It wasn't like something that she was passionate about. Her passion was to be famous. That just rubs me the wrong way. She was upset being at the mansion and living with catty girls and having rules, but then in the same breath explains how she only went there to have a roof over her head and thought it'd be a good stepping stone for her career. The poor treatment is kind of the payment she made to use the situation to her benefit, and honestly it worked. Living at the mansion gave her The Girls Next Door, which gave her a spot on Dancing with the Stars and gave her a spot in her Vegas show and her extra segment and her own spin-off reality show. Like, it all came from that. So yeah, you had a curfew for like 7 years and stuff, but it's like in exchange, I don't know, like a lot of people find these things on that website seeking arrangements, because that's what you're doing. You're seeking an arrangement. So yes, she had the 9 o'clock curfew and she had to do certain things, and yeah, it is damning on your soul, but that is the arrangement that you signed up for, you know? Like, I know she hates it when people say that, but I understand getting getting stuck there too, and then when you want to leave, you feel like you can't, because that's what they do, and that's why it's such a dangerous thing, and you really should think a lot about it before you get into something like that. But I don't know. Well, when she wrote this, she was like 35 or so. You'd think that she would have that connection and realize all of that. I get that she wants so bad to break away from Playboy, but that's how she got where she is. She probably would have had mild success without the mansion, but I don't think she would have had as much as she has. She wouldn't have even had the subject matter for her first book. It feels like every few pages in this she talks about how independent she is and how she built everything on her own, but that's just not true. She's done pretty well with the cards dealt to her, but like the Vegas show, she didn't write it, and Dancing with the Stars, she was a replacement. Yes, she keeps pushing herself forward to become someone, and she does achieve a lot, and I don't want to diminish that at all, but she tries so hard to make it sound like she built everything out of from scratch on her own, and she just didn't. She had a lot of luck and worked on other people's projects, and it just worked out really good for her. Transitioning to the guy element of the book is so jarring from how independent she's trying to sound. Every few pages it seems that there's another guy she's super into, and then suddenly not, and then suddenly there's another, and then suddenly not. And whenever she's single, she's so upset about being alone, and when she found someone good, she just ditched him. So it's just, I don't know. I understand the mentality, but it's weird in a book when you're trying to sound so independent. I think I remember her saying once how Hef can never be single even for a day, and well, Holly, honestly, you're not much better. I would have loved to have read this book and actually see her become truly independent. Also, it's completely weird to me how she wrote both of these books while she was with her husband at the time and didn't really mention him in either, but goes on and on about a list of other men. I would personally be offended if I was him, but maybe he asked her not to include him and she respected that or whatever. Now that they're divorced, though, I'm waiting for the book on him, and I will read it, honestly. If you'd like to know more about Holly, hear about her taking a shit when a guy she likes is within earshot, or when she pulls a 2-day-old condom out of her vagina, then sure, read this book. But if you're looking for a strong story of an independent woman, then run far, far away. Okay, next is Where She Went by Gail Forman, which I gave 2.5 out of 5 stars, which, I don't know, it's a low rating for something that I'm really addicted to. It's not great. This is also the first one that gets my cry emoji, because yes, it made me cry. So Where She Went is the sequel to If I Stay, which if you haven't read that, you definitely need to go read that. That book it's so amazing, and I highly recommend it. To briefly recap the first one, it's about a cellist named Mia and a guitarist named Adam who get into a really passionate relationship until she gets into a horrible car accident where her entire family dies and she's left in a coma. That story ends with her waking up. This story is what happens after. Based on the title, I thought it'd be more about what happened in her coma, which didn't make sense to me because that's basically what the first book is. It flashes to that. But no, this is more what happens 3 or 4 years after that. I don't love in TV shows and movies, etc., when they make couples break up and get back together. It's just annoying. They throw it in for conflict, and I can't stand it. So that's what you find out happened at the start of this book. Mia, for lack of a better word, ghosted Adam a few months after her accident and then just disappears for years. He becomes a huge man slut, which the way that they write it just bothers me so much. And I feel like it's unnecessary to the story. When Mia first appears, he's super depressed and frozen in time, much like Bella is in New Moon. Then he busts out all of these songs about the way Mia had made him feel, and his band wins all these Grammys and gets super huge, and then he starts fucking all the groupies. And it's the groupies that are drawn in by the songs that he wrote about Mia, and he pictures Mia's faces on all of the women he fucks, and it's just gross and it's messy and I don't like it. I feel like that could have been excluded. He's all unhappy and comes across a poster showing that Mia is playing at Carnegie Hall, which happens to be starting right then, and it happens to be right where he's walking at that specific time. He watches her performance, and word gets around the hall that he's in attendance, so she gets an employee to go bring him backstage stage, and they end up spending the night exploring New York, and finally everything spills out on why she actually left. Something I do absolutely love about this book is the passion between them. I picked this book up one afternoon and then I finished it that night because I was just drowning in the intensity of their connection. But then I'd abruptly be ripped out of that from the way that the author writes about music. I don't know if the person has any knowledge of music. She sounds like a middle-aged mom trying to be so cool with her kids, doesn't actually know anything, it's just like really off-putting. I don't know if that's just because I'm a musician myself, so maybe to a non-musician it gets unnoticed, but I sure as hell noticed every single time that she tried to write about it. That and the unrealistic outcome. In the book, 3 or 4 years have taken place since the accident where everyone was like 17 or 18, so now everyone's roughly like 21 or 22. Mia went off to Juilliard, graduated early, and is now playing Carnegie Hall. Adam's band blew up to an insane degree, winning Grammys, he's dating a movie star, etc. And then you hear about Mia's best friend who is traveling to war zones and shooting these pictures that are on Time magazine and National Geographic. It's just very convenient that all 3 of these people got what they wanted in their careers so extremely fast, especially coming from a small town in Oregon. Like, it definitely is possible, but it's more realistic if it happened over more time with like everyone's success staggered out a bit more. It's weird that they just like all are on the same timeline. It's just unrealistic. Mia even mentions that it's weird in the book, which, like, yeah, it is very weird. Maybe you shouldn't put it in the book. It almost turns it into like this fantasy fairy tale. I don't know. It just threw me off in reading it. But anyway, Mia and Adam end up having their moment. I do like, though, that in this, Mia is the one to leave Adam after the accident. I would have had to throw this book out the window if it had been the other way around. I also like that Adam doesn't cheat on his bitchy-ass girlfriend in this. Mia and him talk all night, walking around, and before he kisses her or anything, he like steps aside and calls his girlfriend Bryn to break up with her. And yes, everyone take fucking notes right here. There's absolutely no excuse to ever cheat on someone, even if it's a phone breakup or a text breakup. Like, do your partner the courtesy of actually breaking up with them before anything like happens with someone else. It's not that fucking hard. Just it takes 2 seconds and then you can like do whatever and be a shitty person. Like, at least break up with them. Like, you owe them that much. So in the end, they end up together, and I'm a sucker for a love story that I can really feel, and this is absolutely one of those. If you like the first book, I definitely recommend this one. I don't know why it gets such a bad rep. People seem to really hate this, but I love it. I don't know. Well, I love it, but it's also bad because of everything I said, and that's why I gave it a low rating, but it's at the same time it's good. I don't know. I do recommend it, though. At least the first book. Like, read the first book, and if you really like their connection, then I think you should read this one, because it's an important follow-up. I do hope that they make this into a movie, since they made the first one into a movie. With the time jump, I feel like they could still get away with it. The actors still look young that were in it, and there is the time jump between books, so it would make sense. Next, we have CatStronauts Mission Moon, which I believe is the first volume, by Drew Brockington. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I adore this book. It's just a comic book about astronaut cats, and I know the cute cats is what sells it, but I love it. This volume is about the world having an energy crisis, and the president cat calls the astronaut cats for help. They basically travel to the moon to set up solar panels to give power to the earth. It's filled with cute cat drawings and cute cat details that make it such a fun ride. Upon reading this, I found out that there's actually so much more, so I'm definitely going to be reading all of those. But yes, it's adorable, and I highly recommend. Okay, well, that's everything for June. If you've read any of these, I'd love to talk about them with you in the comments. Obviously, I need more book friends to talk to. But yeah, this channel won't be entirely a book-focused channel, but I do have a much longer July reading update coming. Okay, well, that's everything for June. If you've read any of these, I'd love to talk about them with you in the comments. I love rants. If you have any rants following them up, rant with me. It's fun. Okay, bye.